like to start the meeting. Welcome. And we begin the meeting as we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we, as we always do, start by introducing ourselves. I'm Barney McHenry.
Kevin Burke.
And together we're the co-chairs.
Vincent Altieri from Rockland County.
Michelle Smith from Putnam County.
Ned Ames from the Bronx. Andy Bicking, scenic Hudson, non-voting member.
Jennifer Schwartzberkey, Ulster County.
Good morning, I'm Jim Ether with the Department of State on behalf of Secretary of State Rosado.
Linda Vanderheide, Rensselaer County.
Frank Rooney, Department of Agriculture Markets.
Hi, good morning. Megan Taylor with Empire State Development, representing Commissioners at State.
Linda Cooper,
Greenway Council.
Sarah Wilson.
We're happy we're back in your house.
Scott Keller, Acting Executive Director.
I'm Dave Bullock, National Park Service, Roosevelt, Vanderbilt, Natural Historic Sites.
Also, Barrow, Roosevelt Presidential Library at Museum.
In your house, too.
Beth Campuchiaro, Greenway staff.
Bob Elliott, Council Board Member.
Nancy Beard on behalf of Commissioner Sagos, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation.
Johanna Yon, Orange County Historian, representing Orange County.
Stefan Yarabek, Hudson River Greenway Conservancy. I was asked to share with you a memoriam. I'm almost feeling, given what's happened the past weekend, that the rapture is approaching. We lost David Rockefeller this past weekend at the ripe old age of 101 years. I wanted to share with you that at the very, very beginning, in the early days, it was David at Kent House at his brother's dining room table that David said to Lawrence, this would be a fitting way to memorialize their brother Nelson and his passion for cleaning up the Hudson River. So in the very early days of the Hudson River Valley Greenway, David was the moral support that his brother needed to move forward, and he always, behind the scenes, supported our Greenway. In addition to that, aside from Hugh Hardy, the great architect who passed this past weekend, who did many notable things in New York City and also in the Valley, I just was told by Dave Conover that Cy Hamlin, the designer of the Clearwater, passed this weekend in Maine. If it wasn't for Cy, we wouldn't have a Clearwater that could bring children onto the river to fulfill Pete's dream. So it's a very important week that we remember these special people. Thank you.
Owen Rafter, Dutchess County, representing County Executive Marlon Narrow.
Meg Downey, Greenway Communities Council, representing Dutchess County.
Good morning, Sandra Jobson, New York State Department of Transportation, representing Regional Director West Heights and Commissioner Driscoll.
Sandy Lanzetta, Hudson River Sally Mazzarella, Greenway Council.
I didn't notice anybody. Is anybody on the phone?
Yes, it's Sarah Griffin on the phone.
Hello?
Bruce Davis, OGS.
Okay. All right, now we start in the, let me see, who's on the, well, yeah, okay, start on the, yes, please.
Liz McEnany, SS Columbia Project.
And loading SS Columbia Project.
Hudson Talbot, Thomas Cole, National Historic Site.
Neil Kaplan, Bannerman Castle Trust, Bannerman Island, Hudson Highland State Park.
Jerry Fiella, Historic Hudson River Towns, and also here representing the Sing Sing Prison Museum Project.
Kate Liberman, Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival.
Diane Forsberg, Alana Partnership.
Patrick Landaway, Saugerties Lighthouse Conservancy.
Anna Landaway, Saugerties Lighthouse Conservancy.
Dave Conover, Clearwater.
Cassie Ward, the Newcastle Historical Society.
Chris Marcatello, New York City Greenway Office.
Fred Osborne, Taconic Region State Parks.
Kitty McCullough, Calvert Vaux Preservation Alliance.
Tom Carroll, Troy.
David Graham, Troy, also representing a committee in Troy interested in bringing the Columbia up the river.
Chris Kehoe, planner, Town of Cortland, Westchester County.
John Duncan from the Putnam History Museum.
Marietta Schneider, Historic Huguenot Street.
Joe Anderson, Wappinger Greenway Trail Chair.
Eileen Anderson, Wappinger.
Allie Church, City of Newburgh.
Chad Wade, City of Newburgh. Paul McKenna, Town of Woodstock.
Kathleen Davis, Town of Hyde Park and Winnicke Land Trust.
Sally Decker, Hyde Park Trails, and Adirondack Mountain Club Mid-Hudson Chapter.
Glenn Gadali, Barton and LaJudas Engineering. Good morning.
Carl Beard with the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program.
Bonnie Krosky with the Orange County Citizens Foundation and the Seligman Center. Rosemary Wine, Town of Marlborough.
Lynn McGivern, Village of Green Island.
Kristen Swinton, Village of Green Island.
Nancy Gold with Historic Hudson River Towns.
And I'm Dan Jeanson with the Greenway.
And somebody came in late, but anyway, welcome. It's nice to have you here, Mark. It's his 2000th appearance at a Greenway meeting, and of course he is not only representing Dutchess County, but much more important, he's a member of the Greenway Conservancy, and has been a member of the Greenway Conservancy since birth, I believe, because we would hope that you might have a few words of welcome.
If you insist. Thank you.
I've been involved with the Greenway since my birth or its birth. Have I mentioned that I was once the youngest mayor in America? Have you ever heard me say that? No, just checking. First, I want to thank you for getting me out of my house early enough in the morning. I have my wife and I have a 3-month-old at home, which is your opportunity to shamelessly applaud for me. Yes, and it's just nice to be out with adults. So I'm grateful. As Barney, somewhat kiddingly, but I guess with some amount of, there's always some amount of truth to that. I think that I have been to most, if not certainly not all, but most of the Greenway visits here in Dutchess County, and I'd like to use that to frame my welcome to you this morning, and that is to say to you that Dutchess County has always been and remains a strong supporter not only of the Hudson River Valley Greenway, but more importantly, I say with respect, of the principles embodied within. And that we treat this organization with relevance. And I think that's a word I'd like to extend to you and sort of expand on just a little bit more this morning. And that is that we are living in a time, I think, where too many seem to think consolidating power around one or two faces makes sense, that government has all of the answers so long as it can tweet it in 40 some odd characters or less, or if a president or governor or congressman has an idea, it must be the only idea that matters. That is among the most absurd and dangerous things to come out of a Republican democracy. And I don't mean to be too political with you, but I would suggest to you what the Greenway embodies and has for its entire existence is this very deep-seated belief that the Hudson River is no one communities, it's no one elected officials, and it's not owned by any one point in time, but rather all of its heritage, all of its history, all of its relevance today is owned by all of us as a community. And that by bringing stakeholders together around the table to engage in the weighty decision-making, the important discussion around preserving its history, protecting it from abuse, ensuring that it is relevant to people today, educating so that we can protect it moving forward, in encouraging communities to build up with the Hudson River as its front porch is all about what the Greenway does and how important it is that you have relevance today. And that from Dutchess County's perspective, we recognize that we are not an island. None of the counties along the Hudson River are an island unto themselves. We need you around the table to have the conversation. We need the state representatives working with local county and town and village representatives. We need the advocates agitating and irritating and advocating to make sure that policy is considered and that good ideas are brought forward and that bad ones don't see the light of day. It's why, as a community, you've seen, I think many of us, regardless of party affiliation, oppose the Coast Guard's position that the Hudson River should somehow become a parking facility for barges without any, by the way, protection for the local communities or any, and I'm not looking for applause, I already gave you that opportunity about my son, but I appreciate you thinking that. I'm the only politician, if you applaud, I'm going to keep talking, so don't do that. But it's why it's so valuable and important to recognize that for the last 4 decades, this state and our communities have been engaged in part, over the years the Greenway has existed, in part in partnership with the Greenway, we have been engaged in a revitalization of the Hudson River that ought not be dismissed. It ought not be ignored, and it ought not be overlooked for some other reason. The federal government invests a huge amount of money in waterways across the country. Not so in the Hudson River. And I say respectfully that while the state of New York over the last 6 years, and certainly in previous administrations, has expanded its reach to protect the Hudson River, more needs to be done to recognize the Hudson River and its communities as one unified region with an organization, the Greenway, that has prominence and relevance in our decision-making. It's a reason, I say, we want to see the Empire State Trail embrace the Hudson River, not wind its way away from it. It's why in this community in Dutchess County, and we want other counties to join us as well, we're investing in the preservation of farmland and open space. This year, we'll approve 2 more farms in Dutchess County, bringing us over 3,000 acres of preserved and active farmland. It's why Dutchess County has only one of 2 in the state agricultural navigators, because we want to prop up the farming industry in Dutchess County and help open markets and help farmers compete. It's why we believe in integrating the arts in our economic development efforts, and it's why in Dutchess County our economic development efforts have moved far past pirating individuals' employers, taking one major employer and moving them from one part of the state to the other part of the state, but rather investing in the cities and village centers that exist in our community and say to those small businesses who are struggling today that if we're going to grow new jobs, if we're going to be relevant for young people in the future, we've got to invest in the history and heritage embodied in those community centers, that we've got to prop up those small businesses that will create 70% of all new jobs. It's why we want to integrate environmental protection with economic development to sustain growth in a way that's productive and beneficial to our community. And it's why the Hudson River Valley Greenway needs to exist. It needs to have the support of the state government. It needs to have relevance in our decision-making. And regardless of who you are or where you come from in the political spectrum, we need this dialogue to occur. And I just hope that your meetings are more than just a recitation of accomplishments over the last several months, but rather an engaged dialogue on why it's important to protect, preserve, revitalize, and give relevance not only to this organization, but to the riverway that you are empowered to protect and to enhance and support. So Dutchess County remains your partner. I encourage all others in government to recognize the importance of this organization And I am very, very grateful to the support that Dutchess County has seen from our partners. I know that John Midwood is here. He represents Assembly Member Dee Dee Barrett, who's been tremendously supportive. Senator Serino has been tremendously supportive. We need more of them in this region to stand up with county executives like us, regardless of party, and local elected officials, town, village, and city representatives, and say we have got to come together to ensure that we do more to celebrate, preserve, protect, and again, give relevance to this organization and to the Hudson River that binds us all together. Thanks for coming to Dutchess. God bless and enjoy. I've got to go bring a bottle home to my town.
And also, John, we have you here today from Assemblywoman Barrett's office. Would you like to say a few words? John.
Assemblymember Barrett's in session in Albany today, and she asked me to read a letter on her behalf. Dear friends, I wish I could be with you in person to welcome you to the 106th Assembly District and thank you for all you do on behalf of the Hudson River Valley Greenway. As you probably know, I am busy in Albany working on the 2017 and 18 budget. I would like to share a few updates. My office is proud to report that the Assembly budget resolution includes language and funding to support a study of tax incentives for carbon sequestering farming practices. This study should lay the groundwork for a statewide tax credit, my Carbon Farming Act legislation, which would be a win-win by reducing carbon in our atmosphere and providing farmers with healthier and more resilient soils. In an effort to address the Lyme crisis, our Assembly resolution includes language that ensures measures to address tick-borne illnesses and are eligible for environmental health funding. In addition, our office has introduced legislation to combat the proposed Coast Guard anchorages by strengthening the state's ability to set the conditions by which barges are able to navigate the Hudson River. For further information on any of these issues, please don't hesitate to contact my office. Thank you again for graciously giving me this opportunity to remotely update you on the things our office is working on, and thank you for all you do on behalf of the beautiful Hudson Valley region. Warmly, Dee Dee Barrett. Thank you.
I'd also like to give an opportunity to hear from our, from our host this morning. As we heard in the intros, we have this morning from the Park Service here, Dave Bullock, who's standing in for Superintendent Larry Turk, and we'd love to hear from you.
Sarah's sitting out there on that side. She used to be up here, so she's going to be grading me on my performance today, so no pressure there, right? On behalf of the National Park Service and our Superintendent, Larry Turk, it is a privilege to welcome you here today. Larry wanted me to pass on to everybody his apologies for not being here today, as he's in our regional office in Philadelphia for our leadership meetings. You know, when the boss says you got to be there, you know, then he says you got to be here. Well, he's there and I'm here, so there we go. It's been my pleasure over the 10 years that I've been with Roosevelt Vanderbilt Parks as the Chief of Administration to work closely with the Greenway. While most of my involvement dealt with financial aspects, which, by the way, are pretty important, you know.
Appreciate
it. I was able to observe and follow many of the projects that the Greenway has been involved in. In my collaboration, I've gotten to know and work with great folks like Mark and Scott and realize just how much passion the members of this group have for the mission of the Greenway and just how many really good things are being accomplished in our local area. You know, the National Park Service and the National Heritage Areas share a mission to preserve our wonderful natural and historic landmarks and areas to be enjoyed by the public and for all future generations. The Roosevelt, Vanderbilt, and Van Buren National Historic Sites and the Greenway focus that mission on our local area at a local level, and it's an honor and pleasure to share that mission with such a compassionate group. I really do believe that we are making a difference in the efforts that we're putting forth. I want to be sure and extend an invitation to everyone to visit or revisit, as the case may be, all of our wonderful national historic sites while you're here. We have the home of FDR, Eleanor Roosevelt's Valkill, the Vanderbilt Mansion here in Hyde Park, and as we say down south, just up the road a piece, in Kinderhook, we have Martin Van Buren Historic Site. So if you've never had the chance to visit, or if you'd like to do it again, I promise you, you won't be disappointed if you visit our sites. Thank you again for choosing our site for your meeting. Thank you for all that you do in fulfilling your mission, and I hope that the remainder of your meeting is fruitful and that you enjoy your time here. Thank you.
It's wonderful to be hosted when we come here by our friends at the National Park Service. They're wonderful colleagues, and they need us, and we need them now more than ever. And reading your bio, it's also a reminder of how many opportunities the Park Service provides for people who have served in our nation's military. When they retire from the military, you rose to the rank of colonel, to have a second act, if you will, after that. And the National Park Service provides wonderful opportunities for people to continue building their careers post-military by also introducing the rising generation to their nation's treasured parks and history. So we're really grateful to have your service here. We also want to hear, of course, from Paul Sparrow, who's the director of the library here, and it's been a very, very busy full year, and we thought you might be able to update us on a few things and what's going on here. Paul Sparrow.
Good morning, everybody, and I think I said this last year, but I'll say it again. Franklin Roosevelt would love the fact that you guys are here having this meeting. If there was one thing that he cared about above all else, it was the Hudson River and the Hudson River Valley. And he worked very hard in his era to try to preserve it, to raise public awareness of why this is such an important historic site. We're working on a project right now about Vincent Astor and Franklin Roosevelt's relationship. Obviously he owned Astor Courts, and we discovered that as children, they went up to Regis Lake and would camp up there with their families in one of these old campsites up there, and that the St. Regis Hotel was named after their childhood escape up in the Adirondack Mountains. So they have such deep ties to this area, and the work that you're doing is so essential. Nothing can be done these days by one organization. It's only through partnership, collaboration, continuation that anything can really happen, particularly something on the scale of the Hudson River Greenway. I mean, it's an enormous area. It's vitally important to us economically. It's vitally important to us environmentally. It's vitally important to us politically. So your work is so important. I came across a speech that FDR gave in September of 1936, which is very interesting. It was a political rally in North Carolina. It's called the Green Pastures Rally. And he used the reference to the 23rd Psalm, in which it says, "He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters." And he used that as this incredible metaphor for how important it is for us to preserve and protect the environment. And it's a really very visionary speech on his part, understanding that economic development and how you manage farms and how you manage soil erosion, and how you manage trees, and how you manage water flow, it's all connected. He had been spending a fair amount of time in the South, particularly in the Georgia area, because he had been going to Warm Springs for his polio rehabilitation. So some of this is referring to a southern environment, but it reflects very much, I think, how he felt about the Hudson Valley. I have seen the denuding of your forests. I have seen the washing away of your topsoil. I have slid into the ditch from your red clay highways. I have taken part in your splendid efforts to save your forests, to terrace your lands, to harness your streams, and to push hard surface roads into every county in every state. I have even assumed the amazing role of a columnist for a Georgia newspaper in order that I might write powerful pieces against burning over the farm woodlot and in favor of cow, hog, and hen program. So much for the green pastures and the still waters in their more literal physical terms. These ancient words apply, however, with equal force to men and women and children. Your life and mine, though we work in the mill or in the office or in the store, can still be a life in green pastures and beside still waters. And I think it's a wonderful sort of metaphor for what we're trying to do in preserving this environment. It is a very special environment, and it takes everyone working together to preserve it. There are forces at work that want to exploit the resources. There are economic forces that are driving to transform the area into something different. And I really hope that your efforts are successful, and I'm hoping that we can continue to host you here. It has been an exciting year here at the library. I will put my promotional hat on for a second and say we have a new exhibit which just opened on February 19th called Images of Internment, the Incarceration of Japanese Americans During World War II. It opened on the 75th anniversary of the signing of the Executive Order 9066, which allowed the military to create the exclusionary zones on the West Coast. It's a photography exhibit primarily. The photographs are extraordinary by people like Dorothea Lange and Clem Albers and Ansel Adams. It's 200 photographs. I would encourage you to come see it. I believe you all have free passes today. You got a little sticker, so when it's over, if you want to come by this afternoon and see it, it's the first time the library has dealt in an exhibit with this topic. Obviously, it's a controversial topic. I love Franklin Roosevelt, but I think this was one of his great mistakes. And I think it's important in today's political environment that we understand that our greatest champion of civil liberties and freedom could make a mistake like Executive Order 9066 because of the political pressure that he was under at the time. Anyway, I hope you come over and see it, and I hope you keep up the great work. I love what you guys do. It's really amazing. Thank you.
And now we go into some of the, or perhaps the main event today is the SS Columbia. Now, of course, I went to Columbia Law School, and you have your bride teaches at Columbia, so we all, Bob Elliott, we all celebrate your Columbia. We have, and I think and we celebrate Bob Elliott for what he's done. Bob has been with the Greenway since
before Mark Molinaro was born.
And that's a while. But you've done so much for the Greenway, and now you've got this marvelous project of that damn boat of yours. And so now tell us what's going on.
Well, on behalf of my fellow co-chair, Fred Osborne, who's also with us today, I'd like to introduce you to what will be the Hudson River Valley's your own steamship. And to do that, I'd like to call Liz McEnany, who is the executive director of the project, and Captain Ann Loading, who is the project manager. They come up and give you a little taste of what the SS Columbia will look like, or looks like. Liz?
Good morning. Thanks for having us here again, back to present to you. We've done a lot in the past year. Bob, thanks for the introduction to the project, and Fred, it's great to have you here as well. Mark Molinaro talked about the idea of the Hudson River as the front porch to all these communities and towns. But what if it wasn't just your front porch? What if your experience of the Hudson River didn't stop at the waterfront's edge? What if you actually had a chance to get out onto the water itself? As many of you know, this tradition existed for over a century in the Hudson River. We had the great dayline boats that took people from New York City up all the way to Albany, stopping at all the cities and towns in between, taking people to Catskill, taking people to Kingston Point for the amusement park, Bear Mountain to go hiking, having this experience of leaving the dock, leaving all of your cares and worries behind, being on this great ship with up to 3,000 other passengers, hearing almost nothing because it's a silent steam engine, but being able to look down and see the engine, this art in motion, the pistons moving, the oilers down below, being able to have a picnic on the decks, letting your kids run wild. The SS Columbia project is restoring this tradition. We're bringing steamboats back to the Hudson River. SS Columbia, here she is. She's now docked in Buffalo. She's 115 years old. She's designed by the same architect who designed the great Hudson River boats. And when she's back on the river, I'll give you a sense of what she'll be doing. Here she is. This is Columbia being towed into Buffalo, where she's now docked. Our vision for Columbia is that she'll be home ported in New York City and again reconnect the city to the Hudson Valley cities and towns. Serving as a floating cultural venue, she has a ballroom that seats 500 people for events and that can hold even more for performances. The third deck is the beer garden and a main deck that can also accommodate performances and educational programming. We're perhaps a little bit on the nose calling our educational programming STEAM education for science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths. But there'll be plenty of experiences to have kids aboard, kids of all ages and adults to just get down and see this experience. And part of what we're really doing, the dockside destination, dining, hospitality, and events, the excursions, as I've mentioned, and the learning experiences. One of the important things for us moving forward was just making sure that the project was financially viable. As any of you who might have boats or have perhaps, hopefully, you probably have a sense boats are incredibly expensive. So having looked at crunched our business plan, we've seen that by having Columbia operate dockside in New York City several days a week as an events venue, we're able to offset all of our maintenance costs and also costs for educational programming and cultural programming as well. So the project is in fact financially viable. Here are some images of renderings of Columbia as she'll look when she's back in service. So if all goes according to plan, Columbia will make the great journey from Buffalo to the Hudson River in 2018, 2,018 miles in 2018. She's too big for the Erie Canal, so to make this journey, we're going from the Buffalo River, across Lake Erie, up through the St. Lawrence Seaway, out past Quebec, taking a right and heading down the eastern seaboard to New York City. So here are renderings of her coming under the walkway, and renderings of what the Columbia will look like when she's in fact back in service. Since Columbia is not yet on the Hudson River, we're doing a number of events this summer in New York City and up and down the Hudson Valley on other boats to get people out on the water and to start to build some partnerships. Columbia has 30,000 square feet of space, so to us the important thing is we've got space to convene people, to have conversations about the future of the Hudson River, to have Hudson Valley theater groups, performance groups, poetry organizations come on board and do events on board her decks. So we want to start giving people the space and building this audience and these partnerships now. So if anyone has any ideas, please come up to us after to talk about this. But one of the projects we're doing has been supported by the New York State Council on the Arts. And this fall, we're going to have this barge that you can see here, which is the Penzi 399, a historic covered barge. It almost feels like you're on water in a floating wooden barn. We're going to have this barge up in Waterford, coinciding with the tugboat roundup up there, and then also in Kingston when the O Positive Festival is happening there. And this will be a great opportunity to work with the Hudson River Maritime Museum. We're going to have an exhibit about steamboats. You're also going to be able to experience a virtual reality 360 tour of the SS Columbia. And we're partnering with organizations on board the boat. Barney, you mentioned Columbia University that you and Kevin have the ties to. We're partnering with Columbia University's Grad School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation, who's launched their Hudson Valley Initiative. So they'll be convening conversations on board this boat in Kingston, but there's plenty of space and opportunity for others as well. So here are just a few images of what that experience on the barge is like. So plenty of was used for our Hudson Festival several years ago, but there's great convening space, great exhibition space on board. And one of the things that we're doing now is we're thinking about the impact that Columbia is going to have on these cities and towns where we're able to dock. Imagine 1,500 people getting off Columbia at your waterfront. How do we build the infrastructure now that we need for these people? How do we make sure that the transportation's there, the hotels are there, that we're pointing people in the right direction to the tourist attractions? So we're heading up to Kingston on April 25th, and everyone's invited, and perhaps we can circulate this after, working with the Business Association of Kingston, to get a conversation going to make the local businesses aware that we're coming so that we can find out what they're hoping to get from SS Columbia, and they've got about 5 years to prepare before we're in fact steaming. So I'm going to turn this over to Ann Loading, who's going to talk more about where Columbia can go and what we're thinking about in terms of reaching out to the local communities.
Good morning. So my job as the project manager, over the last couple of years, I've been focused mainly on the physical needs of the boat. When we got the boat, I don't know if you saw photos of her, but she was in really bad shape. So we spent the last 2.5 years in the shipyard and fixing her up so that she's now quite happily floating away with no worries. As that part of my job sort of wound down, and I started talking to people locally, I live in Kingston, as I started talking to people locally about this boat that can carry 1,500 people, I'd get through the whole pitch about how great the boat's going to be, we're going to bring all these people, 1,500 people, and sort of everybody would kind of get blaze eyes, like, 1,500 people, what are we going to do with them? And so part of our conversation looking forward has been, how do we help the towns where we're able to stop? How do we help them actually take advantage of these 1,500 people that we're going to bring up? There are actually very few places, no places actually right now that we can land the boat because of the deterioration of the infrastructure over many years. There's not that many places where you can dock a big boat at all. And there's certainly none existing that we can dock the SS Columbia because of her hull configuration. So we're looking at a first go-around of talking to some of the municipalities about what we need physically, and we've already started some of those talks. Kingston in particular, Kingston and actually Marlborough as well, are two cities that are very aware of and start to take some time to talk to us about what we need. So that conversation has started, but what we're also doing is looking at the resources that exist in each town, assuming that we can get docks built at each of these towns, maybe not. But we're going through and we're starting to analyze what's there and what needs to be put in place so that if we do show up, and I mean, I don't think it's likely that 1,500 people are going to be getting off the boat at any given stop, but even a couple hundred people, 300 people here and there. We don't have any overnight lodging on the boat at all. It's a day boat, so people get on and then they get off to do things on shore. So I'm just going to show you, this is just a list of some of the places that we could potentially stop. Water depth is the thing that prevents us from including any of the other places on the river that have waterfront access. So this is basically a list of the docks that have enough water for us to get in. So if we took that, let's see, is that the next one? There we go. So this is an example of the matrix that we're using, which I don't expect you to read the whole thing. But just to show you, what we've done is we've broken down all the basics. Like if we land at the dock, assuming we have a dock, how are we going to get people into the town? What town do they have to do? What is there to do within, a certain amount of a distance off the dock and that kind of thing? Our job is to bring people up. There's, those water trails, and there's ways that the Hudson River community is already connected, right? You've got roads, you're going to have the Empire State Trail, you've got the water, you've got the train, but actually right now we don't have any boats that leave from New York City that connect all the way up the river. We have, in the fall time, inexplicably, only in the fall time, we have a few big boats that come up the river, but all the rest of the year when it's still beautiful, there doesn't seem to be anybody doing that. And there's a few boats that go from the city up to Bear Mountain, and then of course there's the boats that go locally from, Kingston. They tour around and, tours here and there. We're really going to provide a service of connecting towns along the whole river. So people get on our boat, they could get off at any given town. So we need to make sure that the places that we're stopping, that they know what there is to do there. And hopefully it'll become more than just a boat that you get on to take a ride once. Hopefully what we can do is create an opportunity for people to look at the boat as transportation, right? Because you can take the ride up and get off in Cold Spring, or you can take, and then the next time you take the ride up and get off in Newburgh and that kind of thing. So these matrices are just a way for us to start to analyze what's already in place and then to go to meet with each town and in more detail as we go along, say, look, 500 people, what are you going to do with them? How are we going to get them moving around? What are we going to, do you have enough beds? I mean, it's really, really basic stuff, right? But, we have 5 years to get this stuff in place, and a lot of it is pretty major, so we're starting now. It doesn't really make sense for us to bring all these people up if there's not actually an economic development effect throughout the whole valley. Our intent is not to bring people from one place to another, keep them on the boat, and then put them on the train and let them go back down. I mean, that's a problem that we have in a lot of places, is getting that information out, particularly in our case because people aren't going to have cars, right? They're going to get off the boat, and we have to figure out a way to move them around. So that's the Kingston Matrix. Let's see. I think it's a shot of Kingston Point at her. Is it Kingston Point? No, it's not. I don't know. It is? Okay, so it is. You'd think I'd know that. Anyway, so, I mean, it was a very, very popular place. The thing that, one of the marketing strategies or the challenges that we're having is that on other rivers in Europe, actually taking the trip on the river is the thing. Like everybody knows, you go on the Rhine. And we don't really have that tradition anymore in New York, but clearly that was once a thing that you did. So we're going to try to reestablish that by luring people on, by programming on the boat and that kind of stuff. But then again, we need to have a place for them to go when they get off the other end. So this is just an example of one of the plans that they're working on in Kingston. This is actually an older plan that, I don't know, the year's probably on there, but we had started the conversation a long time ago about rebuilding the Hudson River Dayline dock. And so that's just an example of how we're working with cities to make sure that the infrastructure that they are going to build actually can accommodate the Columbia, because that's another problem is that they'll have dock designers come in and not actually understand the needs of our particular vessel. So this is just a matrix, again, an example of the matrix that we're doing for Poughkeepsie. We have matrices for all the towns listed there. These are just the ones that I chose to include. Let's see. And then Marlborough is actually a pretty impressive effort is going on there now. They actually reached out to us and said, we're building this dock, so what do we need to include on the dock, in the dock design to be able to accommodate your boat? And they have a really interesting idea, which is that they don't, if you can see there the matrix, the 1s, 2s, and 3s are rating system, just an internal rating system. It's not a judgment. It's just, what we see as useful for our potential passengers. So they don't have a lot of shops down there. They don't have a lot of restaurants, but they have this great bounty of farms and agricultural tourism. So unlike any of the other potential stops we have, they have this idea of taking people to Marlborough, getting them off, and bringing them up sort of into the country, which is great. I mean, it's an example of how each stop, each town has its own individual identity, which I think will really help us market trips to people, because it's something they may not even think of doing, and if we can make it easy for them to take a steamboat ride up to go pick apples, I mean, where are you going to do that, right? So anyway, this is their design, actually. They're quite a ways into it, and they stay in touch with us, and it's a really impressive effort, and we're hoping, we're modeling our approach on Kingston, just so we can get it all ironed out, how we go into the towns, the questions we have to ask, the conversations we have to have. So that's sort of our first major pushes in Kingston, and then we'll use that process again and again with other towns. But Marlborough has actually kind of jumped ahead into the process. So I think that's my bit, right? Okay.
This summer, that if you don't follow us on our website or get our newsletter, please sign up, because as I said, we'll have events up in Kingston, Waterford, and all around the city this summer. And also looking for partners as we move forward, not just for docking locations, but for programs as well. So any and all ideas are most welcome.
Very exciting project. I don't know, is this on?
It strikes me, and I'm sure this goes without saying to you all, that this is yet another perfect reason to look at an expanded transportation network in the Hudson Valley, which we've talked about for so many years, taking the National Park Service's Roosevelt Ride, for instance, and making it serve a far greater network. And obviously, you're going to have transportation at every place that boat docks. So it seems to me there's some opportunities for others to work collaboratively to get that effort going.
I think that's a really good point. If there's a way that we can start to convene that group now and start having that conversation, we'd love to meet with people and figure out how to take that next step.
Yes, as Wayne Aldridge. Some of us are old enough to be able to say that for nearly 60 years, we've yearned for the day when a great steam vessel will be bringing heritage tourists back up the Hudson River since the final departure of the Alexander Hamilton. And the opportunity is here, and it's pretty darned exciting. The Columbia is a National Historic Landmark vessel. That's just the highest ranking that the history folks can give to a place or a building or a vessel. And she has the right name for the Hudson, and she's very nearly in our waters. The National Heritage Area is committed to promoting effectively heritage tourism in the Hudson. What we haven't been able to do, other than in the wonderful canoe routes, is effectively to do it in a waterborne way. And we will be able to do that with the Columbia. Wonderful to think of people coming up, getting off, seeing sights, getting back on. But even those who don't do that, who just do it for the enjoyment of the scenery, is going to be a tremendously important new opportunity to bring those now almost 60 million visitors a year to Manhattan, a few of them up the Hudson. And I suggest that unless it complicates the Greenway's ability to make grants to this project, that we today or sometime very soon formally endorse this project by resolution as something that's going to advance the interests of the National Heritage Area. Thanks.
Thank you, Wint.
Excuse me, one quick point. Hello. Hi, I'm Jamie Aether with Department of State. We administer the local waterfront revitalization grant program, and this seems to be a natural fit for our program. The communities that you identified, many of them already work with Department of State through local waterfront planning, the LWRP program, and it seems to be a natural fit for doing infrastructure improvements at their waterfronts to bring visitors or from both the land side as well as the water side to their waterfront and then to their communities. And so connecting to downtown revitalization as through the regional economic development councils and with the waterfront. There's a lot of connections here, and a lot of the agencies around this table, I think, have opportunities for the communities that you've identified as well as for your program itself. So I will talk with you afterwards.
Sorry, Scott. Recognizing that some of the smaller communities, sadly, they don't have the capacity to do the planning to make this work in their community. You talk about transportation, and whether it's 500 people or even 1,500 people, it takes a lot of buses to move people around if you don't have activity right there on the waterfront. While some of the urban areas may have waterfront development happening, the smaller communities like Marlborough, where they want to take advantage of their open space, their agriculture, their farmland, and that could be a wonderful experience. I think of my community in Rhinebeck, where the downtown area is a place where people would love to go, but it's 3 miles away, and I can tell you, I don't think my community has the capacity to do that kind of planning. So are the resources available? And I'm here glad about the LWRP. If there are, resources there that could actually come into the community and help them with the planning to make it happen. I know that your organization is going to be stretched and you're looking for money, but, and it may take the state to step in to really help the smaller communities to make this successful, so there are more and more of those stops along the Hudson. And God bless you, it's wonderful. It's to be commended for all the wonderful work.
Just to add really quickly to what Jamie had said, so one of my other hats where, in addition to running the regional offices, being the executive director of the regional council, I know we've sat down and met numerous times, and really happy to see you presenting today. And again, just building off of what Jamie had said, in addition to the program, the LWRP program that the Department of State offers through the CFA process, we also at ESD have a strategic planning and feasibility study grant program as well. But in addition to that, what we could potentially talk about is maybe some of these communities grouping themselves together to really facilitate the SS Columbia getting back on the Hudson River, and maybe it could be something that would elevate, on a grander scale to a transformational project, or one that could potentially be funded under the Upstate Revitalization Initiative plan. There's a couple things that I actually was going to reach out to you guys on anyway, leading into this round of funding. So we'll set up either a call or a meeting going forward. But I think there's, to your point, I completely agree. A lot of these communities don't necessarily have the resources or the wherewithal to get these plans done, and that is going to be a vital part to the success of this project actually going forward and happening. So if there's a way that we can collectively work, through many of the state programs that are offered through the CFA, it would be fantastic. So
that'd be terrific.
Yep.
Oh, hi. I don't know boat jargon, but how deep does the water have to be for the boat to approach a dock?
Well, the Hudson is tidal, of course. So what we call mean lower low, I'm going to guess we need at least 16 feet. 16. Yeah.
I'm with Bannerman. Can you hear me? Hello. I'm with Bannerman Castle, Bannerman Island, and we are a site that would like to connect to the Columbia. However, we have 3 feet of water, so we use flat bottom boat to get over there. But if there's a way to discuss how to make this happen, because I think sites like Bannerman's are places that you want to connect to along the river, even if you can't get there directly. I was thinking perhaps a docking island right in the deep water there, right off the island there, because we do have our own boat that gets people back and forth. But we'd be happy to discuss that further, how to do that. Thanks.
That'd be great.
And just as a footnote to all of the places that we might go in, looking over Jerry Fiala and Nancy Gold there, think about transportation from the city up to the Sing Sing Prison Museum.
One of the things that Historic Hudson River Towns is working on is we're involved with the partnership on the program to do the Hudson River Comprehensive Restoration Plan. Hudson's involved, Clearwater, a whole series of environmental groups. And one of the last things that we're trying to do in that program is to identify from the organizations that are part of the partners, projects that we have that are of interest. And one of the projects we keep mentioning is the issue of deep water access for the tour boats. Liz and we've talked about this on several occasions. So what would be good is, Liz, if I can get a copy of what you have there, and we can talk a little bit about it. On the beginning of April, we're going to go up and start to put a few more dots on the map of projects, and this might be a great one to start to identify where all these locations have to be to get them into that comprehensive plan as well.
Perfect. We can sit down with Ann.
Some of you have heard me say this before, but for the quadricentennial in Virginia in 2008, they raised $250 million in private money to match $250 million from the state of Virginia to beef up the infrastructure to draw tourism and hinge it on their quadricentennial. We missed that opportunity, and things cost a lot more now, so why don't we challenge the governor to give us $500 million over 5 years for Hudson River tourism, heritage tourism, and why don't we get the numbers together to ask for that money effectively?
I'm going to do a shameless pitch for City of Newburgh. We've been working with Jamie on some projects along our waterfront, and one of those projects is a reconstruction of the Newburgh Landing, which is a deep water port. So we have easy access to Marlborough, we have easy access to Bannerman's Island, so I think we should connect at some point.
Absolutely. Newburgh is somewhere we definitely want to make sure Columbia can land.
Oh, yes, sure.
Just speaking of shameless pitches, I just wanted to say that Kingston, just 10 years ago, really was only beginning to embark on what has become a major revitalization, looking at so many small grant opportunities that have leveraged larger grant opportunities and has helped us bring the Clearwater and the Kingston Rail Trail and just so many other projects that have now really blossomed into larger projects. And it's a pitch for the Greenway and what we do, which is that these small grants that people are receiving are an opportunity to gain the leverage you need to grow into larger projects. So that's our Greenway pitch.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Okay, so we're going to now move to the business portion of the meeting, and that always begins with a review of our agenda. This is primarily directed toward the board. Hopefully you've had a chance to review the agenda. Are there any comments on the agenda from our board before we move on? Okay. Moving down the page, we now need to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was held on February 1st, which was a combined meeting, of course, of the Greenway and the Community Council, Conservancy, and Council. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to review those minutes from February 1st. If there are no comments, I'll call for a motion to approve. First, second, Stefan? Bob, second? All approved? Any objections? Okay. Minutes are adopted. I think from there, we're going to go right into the Conservancy agenda. And so I'm going to call the Conservancy meeting to order at this point. Oh, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Before I call the Conservancy to order, I've got to actually have an approval of the minutes of the Grants Committee meeting, which was held by conference call on March 10th. So this is just for the Grants Committee. Do I have a motion from someone on the Grants Committee to accept those minutes? Okay, thank you. And a second? Sound okay? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so those two are adopted. Okay, great. So now I'm going to call the Conservancy meeting to order. And the first order of business is actually to read to you a resolution of appreciation for one of our really long-standing, great Conservancy members, who is Don Mara, who, in between our last meeting and this meeting, let us know that he would like to retire from the Greenway. He's been on for, I think, since 2001. So he really felt like it was time for someone else to have a chance at it, and we're just so grateful to Don. So I wanted to read this resolution of appreciation and call for a motion to accept it. So this is the motion. Whereas Don Mara was appointed to the Greenway Conservancy on the 9th day of November 2001, and has faithfully attended the meetings and participated in the proceedings. And whereas Don Mara has provided the citizens of the Hudson River Valley with his time, effort, and knowledge, and whereas Don Mara has resigned as a member of the Greenway Conservancy, therefore be it resolved, the joint boards of the Hudson River Valley Greenway do hereby pause in their deliberations to honor and commend Don Mara for 16 years of dedicated service to the communities and citizens of the Hudson River Valley Greenway, and be it further resolved that a copy of this proclamation be provided to Don Mara by the Greenway as a symbol of appreciation. Don's not here today, but we will make sure that it finds its way into his hands. So I would like to formally adopt this, so I will need a first. Bob, a second? Okay. Meg, and then all in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, see, resolution's approved. I'm going to sign my portion here. Give it to Barney. Okay, great. And now we move on to an update from Scott on the Empire State Trail and also the governor's budget.
Good morning. It is still morning, right? The Empire State Trail is, as we discussed last time, has been proposed by the governor as a 750-mile multi-use trail connecting the Battery in Manhattan to the Canadian border and Albany to Buffalo on the Erie Canalway Trail. Currently, it is moving through the budgeting process. There is $20 million that the Assembly put in their one-house budget, no money in the Senate one-house budget, and $200 million in the governor's budget. They're all going to get together and discuss it, and we'll know probably about April 1st what's going to happen. In the meantime, we've been working with other state agencies and landowners doing outreach and route finding. Most of the negative comments that we've received relate to areas not being included rather than opposition to the trail. One thing that we can say about that, the chairs and I have met, and we discussed this at our grants committee meeting in March, is that if this, assuming that this passes and we have an Empire State Trail moving forward April 1st, our Greenway grant budget moving forward for trails will be dedicated to connecting the existing Greenway trails, which are still vitally important to our effort to create a Greenway trail system, to the Empire State Trail. And one of the folks, to step back to the folks not being included but want to be, Rockland County Council Member Vincent Altieri is here, and you wanted to say a couple of words.
Just that we think it's a great project, and in Rockland we have several miles, basically our whole coast along the Hudson, where we have either existing trail on the river, right on the river literally, or on the Palisades with a commanding view of the river, and we just look forward to working with the Greenway to try to incorporate that in the future.
Thank you, Vincent. Now let me update you on the governor's budget. For the Greenway Conservancy, there's $416,000 in the governor's budget, $166,000 for operations, and $250,000 in the EPF for trails grants. As with the Empire State Trail, we're proceeding through negotiations.
Scott?
Yes.
May I make a brief comment?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was hoping you might.
Oh, thank you. So as many people know, I'm a registered lobbyist, but I come by that work honestly. Person from the Hudson Valley. So I just want everyone in the room to understand that there has been a very focused campaign in support of the governor's proposal, with the most recent installment of which was a press conference earlier this week where Scenic Hudson and our partners with the Alliance for Parks and Trails New York brought in new voices in support of the measure proposed by the governor, including the American Heart Association, and also including REI, the recreational outdoor outfitter, who has several stores, including a new store in Rochester opening right within a mile within the proposed route of the trail. So there is strong support for the measure in both the public sector and the private sector. As you heard earlier, the state budget deadline is April 1st, and there is an opportunity still to weigh in with your lawmakers in support of the concept. And our dealings with the administration has found them to be, very open to hearing a lot of different ideas on the proposal. So it's a great time for the public to call your assembly member or senator in support of the proposal.
Andy, is there any particular problem with any particular legislator, or would you rather not say?
I'd rather not say that. I'd rather, Went, that you explore that with your own elected officials and ask them where they stand. I will say, I think there has been strong interest in the Hudson Valley in the proposal, with varying degrees of support depending on the district that it's in.
I'm thrilled to hear REI is involved because I've spent a lot of money there over the years.
They are a member organization.
Chairman, I think it's your turn.
Now we shift our attention. You know, we have these two organizations, the Council and the Conservancy. We work together. It was actually the idea of Henry Diamond and Lawrence Rockefeller that it was have two organizations, because he said you get twice as many people involved this way. Well, some of the involvements had some problems, but it's really worked out well, and Kevin and I look at things the same way, and we intend to continue that. Now, we have two appointments. The council has the vote that has the power to appoint people to the Conservancy, and it is a particular pleasure to have that, to be able to do that with Sarah Olson, who has been our host here for many more years than either of us would care to admit. So Sarah, we're going to appoint you, and I need to have a motion for that. Move. Second? Bob, thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Now, Sarah, you are now a member of the Conservancy. And could you say something about this great honor?
Well, I accept with great pleasure, thank you. I just need to know which side of the table to sit on.
All right, well, there we go. Now, the second appointment is Meg Downey, who's right over here, and Meg Downey being appointed to the Grants Committee of the Council. May I have a motion, please, for that grant? Second? Yep. All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, all right. Meg, we're delighted to have that, and would you say something?
Well, you know, I've been an advocate for a long time, so it's a great privilege to finally be able to be on the other side of things and support the Greenway this way. Thank you.
Well, we're glad you're back in the valley. You know, you snuck off to, where was that? You went down to Tennessee.
Nashville, yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, don't leave the valley, please. All right. Now, that takes care of that. And Scott, now we have the council grants. Please, Scott, we'll do this. We'll take one motion for.
Okay. Sarah, we'll be sure and send you directions on how to get here next time. We have 4 different council grants we're going to ask you to vote on today. The first one is to the City of Newburgh. It is a $7,500 grant for a complete streets demonstration Phase 2 project. It's a second-year rollout, and it's designed to increase pedestrian safety, connectivity, and improve the streetscape in downtown Newburgh for low-cost interventions. And City Planner Ali Church is here today. And would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I thank you greatly for considering this application. As you said, this is the second year of the rollout. We're looking at low-cost interventions mainly on Broadway and then streets that go off of that, using paint and just simple potted plants and things to make pedestrian realm more friendly, connecting the residents of the city to the waterfront, to places like the SS Constitution, we hope, and getting our residents more engaged in moving around the city. So I thank you for considering that, and we invite you anytime this summer to come check it out.
All right, thank you. The next grant is for the town of Wappinger for $6,100 for a Wappinger Greenway Trail Restoration and Access Initiative. The town of Wappinger and the village of Wappingers Falls have been Greenway partners for decades, and they have done one of the best jobs of collaborative trail planning that we have And they now have a section of trail that has washed out due to a stream that has relocated itself, and they need to do an emergency repair on that. And I believe Joe Ennisser is here today. Joe, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I'd like to thank the council for this grant. This is a key trail that interfaces with scenic Hudson property into Bowden Park. And it also is a major link to the Putnam Island Audubon property, which takes us right on down into the railroad station, Metro North Station in New Hamburg. So we greatly appreciate the grant, and we thank you much.
Thank you, Joe. Joe, by the way, has been, I think, on the Trail Committee since the very beginning and has been one of our best partners in the valley. So thank you. The next grant is for the town of Woodstock and Ulster County to do a comprehensive plan. Woodstock hasn't approved a comprehensive plan since 1962. We're hoping to break that strain. Having grown up in Woodstock, I know that passions run high, and it's oftentimes very difficult to come to consensus. But I'm confident that Supervisor Bill McKenna, who's here and will speak to us shortly, I hope, will be able to do that. Supervisor?
I thank you very much for considering our application. As mentioned, we are operating under a comp plan that was written and approved in 1963. We did have a plan in 2000 before my time that was never implemented, or never adopted, I should say. Probably 85% of the plan was actually implemented, but technically we're still under that 63 plan. We find ourselves at a real crossroads these days with the shared economy in particular, and this will really help guide us over the next 10 to 15 years. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. The last grant we have for you to consider is the Village of Green Island in Albany County. They are looking to do zoning code updates, which they last did 1989, I think. So they're a little overdue. We have Kristen Swinton, who's the chair of the planning board here. If you would care to say a few words.
Thank you for this opportunity. Our village has recently adopted a community action plan, and as we're moving forward with it, we're finding a lot of conflicts with our current zoning code. So it hasn't been updated in 38 years. This grant would allow us to do a comprehensive review throughout the entire community of all zoning so that we can make the updates necessary so that we can continue with redevelopment. We thank you for the opportunity.
That's terrific. So there's a total of $31,100 in grants that we're going to ask you to approve, and the chairman is going to ask for a motion.
Thank you, Scott. You did that very well, as always. Now I have a single motion to approve these 5 grants. May we moved? A second? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, thank you very much. Scott does first-class work. Now we need to talk a little bit about the governor's budget and to pray, perhaps. And should you see Rose Harvey crossing the street, give her your arm, because we'll need, she will need, and we will need for the whole trail business, a lot of strong support, right, Scott?
Yes.
Okay. And all right, now, what do you have? Anything more on that
Yes, I do.
budget? Okay.
The Greenway Council's budget, aside from the Empire State Trail, is $321,000 total, $185,000 for operations and $136,000 for grants like we just gave away. So, as with the rest of the budget, we hope to hear something by April 1st.
Yours, sir. No, I guess, oh my God, it is me again. Is it, I was getting tired, yeah. Is it now we go into the heritage area. We have a long list of grants, and Scott, you're gonna, okay. Scott, this is, okay, I've called the meeting to order, and I've now immediately turned it over to you once again. And we have how many grants?
A bunch.
Okay.
That's a technical mathematical term.
No, but this is, we used to scrimp and save to get maybe a couple of $1,000s off. The total of this.
17.
17, that's a lot. It's 17 grants. Okay, you're on.
Thank you. I have to get all my paperwork organized here so I can figure out what I'm supposed to say. Albany Institute is looking to do a Hudson River School book. It will be a collection of their Hudson River Art School paintings in a 170-page book, the softcover book, that will include 75-plus works, including a map appendix, and we're going to ask that, showing where the locations are so people can, of where they were painted, so people can go visit, which will tie in nicely with our Hudson River School Art Trail. We're also going to ask that they include an overlay map of the entire region showing an outline of the National Heritage Area. They have requested $5,000, and we are recommending $5,000. And Diane Shuchuk, did I say that right? No? No, that's... Is there anybody here from the Albany Institute? No, that's a different book. Okay. The second grant is for Bannerman's Castle Trust. I love going out to Bannerman's Island when I can. I would like to. Bannerman's Castle Trust has done a remarkable job of preserving what they can preserve at Bannerman's Island, which is one of our state sites. And they have done a terrific job on shoring up and restoring the Residence Visitor Center. And they've requested display panels showing a variety of things, including the island's role in the Revolutionary War, construction of the main buildings, the island plant and fauna, Bannerman's business arsenal, the Native Americans' relationship to the island, and rightly the Bannerman's Castle Trust. They've requested $2,000, and we're recommending $2,000.
Thank you very much. I'm Neil Kaplan, Executive Director and founder of the Bannerman Castle Trust. I want to thank the Greenway. They were the first grant that I ever got 24 years ago for, I think it was the start of the Greenway and the start of Bannerman Castle Trust, and they gave us a grant for our, it's a viewing platform, which currently you couldn't view Bannerman's from the east side of the river. You had to cross the railroad tracks and get hit by a train, and they enabled us to do that. And this viewing platform is used for people to see Bannerman's from the side of the river. It's also used for people to see Melissa McGill's wonderful art project, Constellation, which you can view it from the east side of the river. So we're really thrilled, and thank you for getting us started, because it was that grant that got me started for so many others to try to get Bannerman's open. We've managed to stabilize the residence. There were no floors, no roofs, nothing. And we had to clean it out and put in the floors and the roofs. This year, by the end of June, we are planning to open 2 rooms in the residence that you will be able to visit inside, and we're creating visitor panels that go over the windows, because we don't have a lot of windows that we can put in at $2,500 a window or $3,000 a window. We're doing the least that we can do, but the windows that are boarded up will be covered with display panels, so you can read all about all the history. And we really appreciate this opportunity to continue, and we invite you all out to come to Bannerman's. We have concerts and shows this year, including the wonderful Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival, who is coming out to do Romeo and Juliet this year. So my shameless commercial, but it's really worth it, because they're wonderful and they help make our season great. And we thank you for this opportunity to do this. And I'd like to thank Linda Cooper from Parks, who is absolutely awesome and really a big help to us. Thank you.
I'll second that. The next one is for Historic Huguenot Street. They are looking for a project called Presenting Muncie Life and Culture. They've requested $5,000 to create a wigwam to interpret Native American culture. We are recommending $5,000. Mary Etta Schneider is here. She is the executive director. And I want to say, a long, long time ago, I worked your tercentennial celebration, taking tickets.
We'll come back.
That far back. Please don't tell anybody how many years you're around now.
Yeah, well, I won't. Thank you, though. The Historic Huguenot Street is very appreciative of the consideration of this grant. When the county executive today was talking about relevance, it's one of the things that we are very determined to do on Historic Huguenot Street, which is to use our history to be relevant today, be it a story of refugees that fled religious persecution, that founded New Paltz, to those enslaved whose story was neglected for many years, and the importance of the contribution of building the village as well as supporting life. And finally, we used to say on Huguenot Street that the town was founded by Huguenots. Well, it wasn't. The indigenous people that lived in this area, it was their homeland. And we have been making a very important concerted effort to honor them. The Muncie is a kind of a broader grouping for the Esopus Native Americans, and we're this year celebrating the 340th anniversary of the signing of the land agreement where the Esopus did sell this 40,000 acres of land to the founders of New Paltz for a lot of goods. We encourage you to come over for the opening of the wigwam, which is on April 29th. It will be historically correct. We know one existed because of the archaeology that's been done on Huguenot Street. It will have a working fire that actually is part of making sure it's enduring. It keeps the bugs and mildew out of the architecture. So we're very appreciative of the consideration and hope that you'll come explore the story of the Esopus Muncie. Thank you.
Thank you. The next grant the Grants Committee is proposing is to the Hudson Highlands Land Trust for their 2017 Take a Hike program. They've requested $2,500. The committee is recommending $2,500. They are doing they're going to feature 8 hikes in the brochure. 7 of them promote heritage area sites, 3, or designated Greenway trails, 4. So what happened on the 4th one, or on the last one? Michelle Smith is here, and you are also recusing yourself on this grant. That's because correct. You are a board member and the executive director.
So I am a Communities Council a member, as well as the executive director of the Hudson Highlands Land Trust. So I will be recusing myself from the vote. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. Yes, unfortunately we had one site. We actually what we tried to do was build a collection of sites as a land conservation organisation to have the site on as much conserved property as possible. That's state park land as well as land that's been conserved by us and other organisations like Scenic Hudson, and as many heritage areas as possible. And actually the overlap where we got both attributes was half of the sites that we chose for the hikes. In addition to that, we're also trying to get a more diverse population out onto public lands to enjoy them, and out onto heritage areas as well. And with that, we actually have our first Spanish-speaking hike. So the hike leader will conduct the whole hike in Spanish, and that actually is also part of the Hudson Valley River Ramble. And then the theme that you'll hear in other grants that you hear about today is a Benedict Arnold theme, not to steal Kate's thunder, but we also have a Benedict Arnold hike included.
Excellent, and I was only teasing. We're thrilled with 7 out of 8. The next grant is for the Hudson River Maritime Museum, Caring for the River Together exhibit. And what the Maritime Museum wants to do is put together an ecological interpretive exhibit featuring four entities that really deserve the recognition, who've done tremendous amounts to clean up the Hudson. They include the Department of Environmental Conservation, Riverkeeper, Clearwater, and Scenic Hudson. The Grants Committee is recommending full amount of this award, $2,855. Lisa Klein, are you here? Not here. Okay. The next one is for the Hudson River Sloop Clearwater, the All Aboard Public Sailing Program. They have requested $5,000 to support their sailing operations, and the Grants Committee is recommending $5,000. The Grants Committee was very interested in supporting this grant because the Clearwater, as many of you know, has been off the water for at least a year, and you're now back on. And David Conover is here, who's the acting executive director. I know how that feels. David, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, thanks a lot. We really, really appreciate the support of this program. It supports our public sales that we do on the Hudson, and many of them are thematic that focus on human and natural history of the river. And like Scott mentioned a year ago, yeah, the boat was on a barge up at the Maritime Museum having this epic restoration being done. So we're relieved that we have a full sailing schedule this year, and our festival is back also this year. So it feels a little bit more normal in the Clearwater world right now. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. The next one is for the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival with Boscobel House and Putnam History Museum. The project name is Benedict Arnold's New York, and the Shakespeare Festival will be putting on a play about Benedict Arnold's life in England after his treason. They are partnering with the Putnam History Museum, who's also put in for a grant, which we'll discuss a little later. And I believe we have Kate Lieberman here today. Hi, Kate.
Good morning. I'm honored to be here and very grateful that we're being considered for this grant. The Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival, as a part of our season this coming summer, is producing a play called The General from America, written by Richard Nelson, who in fact is a Rhinebeck-based playwright, so all locally connected. The General from America tells the story of the American Revolution, specifically of Benedict Arnold's treason when he was posted at West Point, and that will be running through the month of August. In collaboration with our production of the show on our site at Boscobel House and Gardens, which is a very unique site to tell this particular story about Arnold's flight, we're collaborating with the Putnam History Museum, who I know will also be talking about their exhibit about Benedict Arnold. We're also collaborating with the Constitution Island Association to make sure that there's all kinds of ancillary activities teaching people about this time in the Hudson Valley at the Revolution. The West Point Museum will also be hosting some events for us, and Boscobel House and Gardens will be doing some educational events on the Boscobel site itself. So what was in our grant called Benedict Arnold New York is now sort of renamed as Revolution Week, the last week of August into Labor Day weekend, and there'll be all sorts of activities Arnold and Revolution related on our site and throughout the sort of 15-mile radius around us.
And I think I failed to mention, we're recommending $5,000 for that.
That's correct.
And Kate, could you mention and perhaps explain a little bit about the season, the exciting season that you have coming up?
I'm happy to. In addition to what we've applied for this grant for, the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival has our tickets are currently on sale, so please come talk to me if you'd like to buy tickets. We're producing Twelfth Night, in addition to a brand new adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, which we're looking forward to being really fun and delightful on the grounds of Boscobel and sort of the same era in which the play takes place. We're producing a shorter run of Love's Labor's Lost, which is family friendly, and we'll have free family matinees at the end of the summer. And we're producing a new play called The Book of Will, about the creation of Shakespeare's first folio, a little Shakespearean history connecting to our home playwright and the history of our organization. Is that what you were hoping for, Barney?
You did that.
Okay, great.
Ever since you and Davis McCollum have landed on our shores, you've done everything. The weather is better.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're pleased to be here.
Scott, I just need to recuse myself from this.
Okay, what we're going to do is when Barney calls for a vote, we will go around and ask for who needs to recuse on what grant. So, because we know there are going to be numerous ones. The next one is for Manitoga. Their project is entitled Learning from the Woodland Landscape, and what they're looking to do is hire a landscape site educator and buy some materials for a project that the educator will work on in view of the public and working with the public. In future, they plan to incorporate that into their regular budget. They did not have the wherewithal to do that this year. We think this is a great way to promote one of our Greenway trails. The committee, they requested $4,500. That's what the committee is recommending. And Stefan, I believe you are not only going to speak on this, but also recuse yourself.
Thank you, Scott. This is a statement from Allison Cross, the new dynamic director of Manitoga, who has brought it into a whole new realm of possibilities. Manitoga is honored to receive for the first time a Hudson River Valley National Heritage Grant. The grant will help support the hire of a seasonal educator to introduce the reclamation history and design features of Manitoga's Woodland Trail Loop network, recently adopted by the New York-New Jersey Trail Conference and conserved for permanent public use in partnership with the Open Space Institute. I want to say personally that a major feat occurred. Thanks to the Open Space Institute, the trail system will be preserved forever, but it also, that acquisition helped finance significant improvements at Manitoga, so it was a great partnership.
Thank you. The next grant is for the Newcastle Historical Society to do a core exhibition project in the Horace Greeley House. The core exhibit and educational materials and programming are all going to be part of this grant. They requested $4,977. The committee is recommending $2,500. And Cassie Ward, I believe, is here. Cassie is the executive director.
Thank you so much for your consideration for this grant. The grant funding will help us with the core exhibition project. So about 15 years ago, after having about 10 different headquarters, the Newcastle Historical Society was able to acquire the Horace Greeley House. So since that time, we've primarily been focused on an interpretive plan and restoring the Horace Greeley House. Now, after a recent strategic planning process, we identified the need for an exhibit that would do a comprehensive overview of Newcastle's history. This project will enable us to really present a multi-layered history of the town of Newcastle set within the historic context of the Hudson River Valley. The other components of the project, so in addition to producing the actual exhibition panels, we will produce a brochure, a historic brochure that talks about the town of Newcastle history, but also linking it to other sites in the Hudson River Valley. We will be adding an entire section to our website through this project that focuses on the exhibition, as well as providing educational resources for educators and short historic blogs. There will also be, this project will also allow us to create an additional educational program on-site related to the exhibition, as well as to create off-site programming for greater outreach to reach more audiences. And then ultimately, it will provide us with the ability to create a preliminary outline for a youth summit that will focus on history, heritage, and historic preservation.
Thank you. The next grant is for the Friends of Olana to do historic landscape tours. They are currently doing a landscape walking tour. This is for enhancements, including tour guides, brochures, and promotion. And Diane Forsberg is here from Friends of Olana.
Hi, I'm Diane Forsberg. I've been at the Olana Partnership for a few weeks now. I'm the new Director of Collections and Exhibitions. Many, many years people have gone to Olana to see Frederick Church's historic house and looked out on the landscape from the house, and it's quite spectacular from that vantage point. But last year, the Education Department put together a series of tours that have become immensely popular and need to be expanded because of demand, and we need to hire new people to give these tours. And this is also quite wonderful because it gets people walking the old carriage roads that were designed by Frederick Church and Vox. And so they can explore a landscape that was created by a landscape artist, and also from the walk can look out in the distance at the spectacular views that you can see on the 250 acres that is at Alana. We have a lot of exciting things happening this summer. Teresa Fernandez, amazing artist, has been asked to select art from the 19th century and art from contemporary artists, which will be on display at the house, exploring the theme of landscape and fauna and portraits of South America. And in the landscape itself, we have a sculpture coming that has been at LACMA in Los Angeles for many, many years. Soto's sculpture will be installed there, and we think that'll be a quite popular draw into the landscape also.
Thank you. The next grant is for the Putnam History Museum, Benedict Arnold and the Hudson Highlands, and they're going to tell General Arnold's story through art, artifacts, and books. And there'll be an exhibit and a brochure in concert with the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival, as we already heard. John Duncan is here to speak about that.
Actually, our executive director is here.
Oh.
I just signed in first, so you have my name.
Well, please introduce your executive director.
Hi, I'm Mindy Kraisman. I'm the executive director of the Putnam History Museum, and this is John Duncan. He's our collections associate. We are so grateful for this grant that will allow our organization to create an exhibition about Benedict Arnold, his life in the Hudson Highlands, his acts of treason, and his command of West Point. John has already begun working on this exhibition, which is going to feature material from the West Point Museum, reproductions of material that are in the archives of the West Point Library, prints, rare books, and other artworks from our own collection and the collections of community members. We're really excited to partner with the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival on this also, who, as you heard, is going to be presenting a production of The General from America, because this gives us a chance to provide the community with a really kind of 360-degree experience of history by showing, the pieces of the history that we have, as well as an artistic interpretation of aspects of that history. And our exhibition is going to be opening in late June or early July, and will remain up at least through December. And we're going to be creating a map that will allow people to visit sites in the Hudson Highlands associated with Benedict Arnold. And we're in the process of developing various marketing and educational programming along with the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival, so that we can really publicize and reach the community with both of our projects. So thank you very much for this opportunity. We're most grateful.
Thank you. The next grant is proposed for the Saugerties Lighthouse Conservancy for their plans for preservation, living museum, living history. Saugerties Lighthouse, if you haven't been there, is one of the coolest spots on the river. It sticks well out into the river. There's a hiking trail to get there. The hiking trail is often above high tide, not always. It's also a bed and breakfast. Sometimes you need up to 6 months to reserve 6 months in advance to get in, but it is a very cool spot. They do great interpretation. At low tide, there's a beach near the lighthouse that draws all kinds of people in boats and kayaks. And if there's not actually somebody in the residence staying, they will give tours to the people who are there. I've been on a number of them myself. I can tell you that they desperately need the materials to preserve these artifacts and protect them, because wet kayakers like me come in and drip all over the place. Ann Landu is here from the Saugerties Lighthouse Conservancy, if you care to say a few words.
Hi, it's Anna Landaway. I try to remind people that land away, like the lighthouse keeps the ships away from land. Completely coincidental, but good to remember the name. Thank you so much for allowing us to come here and to apply for this opportunity for a grant. We're honored to have the endorsement as one of the coolest places on the Hudson. We are a small, independent, not-for-profit organization that was formed by the coming together of community members, by the local craftsmen, by architect, by people who just had the vision to want to preserve this space when it was slated for demolition in the 1970s. We're very unique in that we're accessible by land. We're the only lighthouse on the Hudson River that's accessible by land. That's a residence lighthouse, of course. And I say residence because I serve as the current president of the board of directors, but I also am a resident caretaker there with my husband Patrick, who is the official lighthouse keeper. Yes, we do have a lighthouse keeper, but nowadays it's a fancy name for executive director, really. So obviously our passion for this maritime history, particularly of the Hudson River, runs really deep. And we're grateful to be considered for this funding because it will enable us to infuse a little bit of vitality into our museum. The museum was developed in tandem with the restoration of the building itself. The entire building is considered a living museum, but we have a space where we have objects and images that help to contextualize the lighthouse in relation to the entire Hudson River Valley, the development of this corridor of commerce. And this funding will help us share that with the thousands of visitors that come to see us every year. We'd like to make it a little bit more fun and even more cool. So we appreciate the consideration for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. The Seligman Center has applied for a grant for the Seligman Story Bank, which will be a web-based oral history archive and interactive audio-visual welcome center celebrating the surrealist movement of Kurt Seligman. Bonnie Krosky from the Board of Directors is here today.
Hi. We're just really grateful to be considered for this grant. It'll help us complete this story bank. Kurt Seligman was a really important surrealist artist, and his wife Arlette, who was an environmentalist and a naturalist, were significant and left their 55-acre homestead. We are capturing the voices, the neighbors, the art historians who knew them in a kind of just-in-time fashion to have a film, video, and an oral history bank. And this will allow us to complete it. We'll have an interactive monitor at our Welcome Center, and we are so grateful to be able to complete this. Thank you.
Well, we're delighted that this is the first time a lot of us have had any, or actually really even heard of the Seligman Center. And this sounds like a great place to visit. And thank you very much for applying, and we're delighted to help you.
Oh, good, thank you. And I hope we have lots of programming. There were a lot of important artists who visited there. Alexander Calder, Duchamp, Max Ernst, Man Ray, came, visited, stayed. So there's a wealth of art history as well as Arlette's love of nature that is the effort that we combine both in our programming. So, it's in Orange. It's in Chester, actually in Sugarloaf, in Orange County. So
Thank you.
Do visit and check our website, and all of this will be on the website as well.
The next grant is to the SS Columbia for a traveling exhibit called Hudson River Stories. It'll be a traveling arts and culture celebration of boats, cargo, people, and ideas. They requested $10,000. We are awarding $5,000. I'm not sure there's anybody here from the SS Columbia today to say anything.
Thank you, Scott. On behalf of the board, thank you for the consideration of this grant. You saw the images of the barge that we'll be using for this traveling exhibit, so it would be an honor to move forward with this and continue to partner with people and invite them on board the boat, both as co-partners in terms of programming and just welcome the community on the water as well.
Thanks, Liz. The next grant is for the Thomas Cole House, the story of Thomas Cole in ebook form. They've requested $5,000. We're recommending $5,000. It's to create an illustrated free ebook for school-aged children and their families exploring the life of Thomas Cole. And the author of the book, Hudson Talbot, is here today. Hudson?
Hi, everybody. So I'm going to try to do this in the round, I guess. That really is my name. I didn't name myself that. Thank you very much for this award. It helps us out a lot. I'm actually substituting for Beth C. Jacks, our executive director, who couldn't be here today. But this was her idea, and I thought it was a brilliant one. I've been on the board for about 12 years, and they've used my whatever abilities I have, my skills in various ways, and she thought this would be a great way to do it. And I thought so too, making an e-book that tells the story of how Thomas Cole came up here on a steamboat in 1825 and discovered the beauty of the Hudson Valley and the Catskill Mountains, and essentially started the first American art movement. So I pitched the idea to my editor at Random House, and surprisingly, she went for it too. So not only is this going to be an e-book that will be sponsored by the funding that we're receiving from Greenways, but it'll be commercially available out in the rest of the world, spreading the gospel of the Hudson Valley and Thomas Cole and the Hudson River School, wherever they can sell this book. I was able to pitch it to my editor because of such wonderful momentum that we have going right now, along with Olana, with two particular things that are happening. The bridge project, which I'm sure you all are probably familiar with, Rip Van Winkle Bridge, Thomas Cole, the New York State Bridge Authority, and Olana initiated a project to make a trail linking the Cole House on one side of the river across the Rip Van Winkle Bridge to the pedestrian trails going up to Olana. And the bridge is going to install 3 viewing platforms. We received a grant on that for $875,000 from the state. So this is really exciting because we want to connect it up with, all our network of trails. That, along with a major show of Thomas Cole's work that's happening at the Metropolitan Museum in New York, starting in January of 2018, were two pretty good ways to pitch the story of a book about Thomas Cole to my editor, and that's what's happening. So I really appreciate you all giving us the spark to get this going. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. We think it's a great idea to have an electronic form book that kids can access in school, and a lot of schools can't afford to buy the paper versions, so the electronic form works really well. The last grant is for the Village of Kinderhook. It's called Native Son, Martin Van Buren and Kinderhook, a historic connectivity promotional rat card and poster, and they win the prize for the longest title. They are going to research, develop, design, produce, and print a visitor's rat card with map and accompanying poster of historic sites related to the life of President Martin Van Buren. They requested a whopping $1,000, and we're going to give them that much. We have had great experience with the Ramble rat cards that we put out every year, and we do a pretty good-sized print run. It costs more than $1,000, and they go quickly. So we think this is a really good program. Mayor James Duncan is here from the Village of Kinderhook. Yes, no, maybe? Okay. It's up to you, Chairman.
All right, I'm only co-chair. Kevin, would you get
Chairman.
comments on?
Chairman.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that when you sit here and listen to the range and the diversity of grants that are awarded through this program, it's really astounding. And part of me wishes we had a giant map behind us that every time someone got up to speak, we could see a different light lighting up, and you could see the just sheer space covered. And it almost reminds me of a pointillist painting where each of the organizations that's out there that's spreading the word about the Hudson Valley and history, you add it up, it's a really beautiful painting, and there's so much going on. And really, as a heritage area, we depend upon the communities, the local people attending to the local historical societies or nonprofits to spread the word to us about what your needs are. And through the interactions that we have with you to really together build this narrative and make sure the story continues to unfold. It's very exciting to listen to all the great programs going on out there. So I'm heartened and excited by these grants today, and I appreciate the support of our board who works through these applications, and Scott and the team to make sure that we're supporting the communities in the Hudson Valley.
So now, Dr. Burke, you and I will call for a motion for the 16 grants. Right? 16? Yes. 16.
Any recusals? Okay, let's note those. So let's go down. Michelle Smith?
Second, all right.
Yep. Sarah, you have?
There's a lot of people got to recuse themselves from this because, but it,
And Jennifer? This is Columbia and the Maritime Museum for Jennifer. And Stefan? Yep.
It's a banner day. Olana, Newcastle, Boscobel, and I have to say that I've been involved with Clearwater since before Marcus Molinaro was born.
Manitoba as well?
And Manitoga,
And Meg has one?
Yeah, the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival of Boscobel.
Okay. And then Barney, you two, I think, have a couple.
yeah, and about half of them. Okay, but I think we've still got enough.
You can cobble it together here.
Okay. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Grand job, Scott.
Thank you, Scott. Great.
I want to thank the Grants Committee and the staff who review all of these painstakingly, and then get on a conference call for a couple of hours and go over them again. Thank you all. Next thing is the Path Through History. Path Through History will be held this year, June 17th and 18th, and October 7th and 9th. For more info, paththroughhistory.iloveny.com. You can register events there for the fall. I believe registration's closed for the spring one, but possibly not. And you can definitely see all the events that you can attend. The Hudson River Valley Ramble. We're actually going to stretch into October this year for the first time. September 2, 3, 9, 10, 16, 17, 23, 24, 30, and October 1st. For more information, HudsonRiverValleyRamble.com. Late update to the National Heritage Area budget. The governor's skinny budget came out and proposes to eliminate Heritage Area funding altogether. This sounds disastrous. President, did I say governor? I meant president, sorry.
There's a difference.
Yeah, there is a difference, just slightly. Like, yeah, the only thing they have in common is they're both from New York. Yeah, and Queens. Does that count as New York? You brought it up.
That's where I was born.
Yeah, that's but for the last 8 years, President Obama had every year cut the funding 50%, and it was almost restored by Congress. The Alliance of National Heritage Areas is working with all of the heritage areas to reach out to their Congress members to get Dear Colleague letters. Congressman Tonko started this, and he was the first to support it. Sean Patrick Maloney from our district has also sent one. Nita Lowy is a ranking member of the Appropriations Committee, doesn't do Dear Colleague letters, but she's writing a personal letter of support. So at last count, there were 27 that I saw who had congressmen who submitted the Dear Colleague letters, 28 counting Congresswoman Lowy's support. So we are concerned, but we're not destitute yet.
That's an excellent idea, Whit. It really is. And Sarah, we've worked together for a good many years, and I guess we're delighted that you're here. We're delighted to be here. It's a wonderful place, and you guys do things very well indeed. So if we could just say we have a general sense of the meeting to thank the Park Service. Okay, all right? Thank them. Okay, next. Whit, you got anything else? No.
I'm going to jump to my acting executive director's report with your leave, gentlemen. I've been doing this for a few months now, and I just want to thank the board, and in particular the chairs, for their support. It has been, you've all been a great help to me, and I very much appreciate it. I also would like to ask the staff to stand up and be recognized for the tremendous work that they do. They cover all of us every day. And if you don't want to believe me, read the executive director's report. You'll see a little summary on what everybody's been working on, and it's quite a lot given what we met just 6 weeks ago. That's it for me.
All right, anything else? Thank you all, and we ran
2 minutes.
no, 3 minutes over, but that's not too bad. Thank you for letting us be here. Thank you all. See you in June.